I was brought up as Kanaka Maoli. I learned the importance of sharing and of giving. Kanaka Maoli have the worst health, economic, social, educational indicators of all ethnicities in our homeland. We're all ohana, therefore we have an obligation, kuleana, responsibility, to care for each other and to share with each other.
Kikuni Blaisdell, Emmett Aluli, myself sat in a hotel lobby and said, we're going to do this. We're going to form this group and we're going to develop an organization of physicians to represent the Native Hawaiian community.
The beautiful thing about Hawaii is that Hawaiian culture is a very welcoming one.
We care for each other. We care for one another.
We all are a part of this magical place we call Hawaii.
Something that's so unique with Hawaiian culture is the concept of aloha, to share your affection with each other in many ways. And it's something that is a kuleana, it's a responsibility for us to really understand what aloha is and what aloha means, not only for each other, but to this aina, to take care of the land that sustains us. Our kupuna was so in tune with what's going on around them. They had a connection to the land.
All indigenous populations are very much connected to the land that they're on. Everyone were stewards of the land. The Ahahui system involved caring for the land so that it supported everyone. And here in Hawaii, the ability to support a large native population was tremendous. And as time has gone by and as other cultures have come in, that understanding and appreciation for and connection with the land has been lost.
Historically, a lot of these challenges can have negative impacts on indigenous people, and it can be generational.
Looking back on the history of what happened to the Hawaiian population, it went from 800,000, and 100 years later, it was down to 40,000. So that's a precipitous decline.
The data shows that Native Hawaiians are not at the level of health as the rest of the population. Native Hawaiians have higher rates of heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease.
So we are really focusing on how historical trauma ties into overall health and well-being.
So it's the cultural trauma that happens generations ago that we understand and we feel now.
Prior to the 70s, being Hawaiian was shunned upon. My tutu grew up telling me stories of getting hit by a ruler in school if he would speak his native tongue, Olelo Hawaii.
Without that language, am I losing my culture? People would call that a cultural trauma.
If I can describe cultural trauma with one analogy, I would say kaho'olawe.
After the war, the military got ko'olawe, and so they just kind of tried every ammunition, every bomb, every torpedo was tested on ko'olawe and was practiced there. When you hear that, it's like into your chest. I mean, it hurts after it started to hurt. Why? Why are you doing this to the island? And people take it seriously. It's like doing it to me. So it was just the most devastating damage you'll ever see. It hurt us. One of the old saying is, take care of the land and the land takes care of you. The health of the land is the health of our people and actually the health of our nation. So we made a commitment to do something about it, and we were able to get the bombing stopped.
Kaho'olawe has brought such a wonderful thing because it's brought Hawaiians together for a movement to make things better, to do what's right, to help us to understand the importance of putting ourselves forth to make sure that the aina is there for our keiki and our keiki's keiki, and for us to be able to share that or be a part of that genealogy, to be a part of that mo'olelo that we can carry forth in healing. So from there came the revitalization of Olelo Hawaii cultural practices. Now it continued with community organizations coming together, having more people wanting to enter into programs that are land-based and ecosystem-based, aina-based. All of these things are good things for us as Hawaiians because it helps us to get back to our roots. Our kupuna have lived through a lot of challenging times. Understanding that and getting back to that indigenous wisdom and the wisdom that our kupuna have for us, we need to listen to that and to really focus on what's important.
We are the most resilient people. So the people that made it from another land, from a va'a, from a canoe to even make it to Hawaii, and now to make it out of all these illness, and we're still here. So why say, oh, poor thing, oh, we cannot? Bring it back to, I can and I will, and this is how I can do this, and make it positive. We can teach, we can educate our students, we can educate our communities, and as physicians, we need to educate ourselves first.
So we need diversity, and we need a way for doctors to be connected to each other.
When I became a physician, there was really a lack of Native Hawaiian physicians, in that the Hawaiian community did not have physicians that could understand or represent them. And we needed a group of physicians who treated them as Hawaiians in a community.
Ahahui o na Kauka was formed in the late 90s, and it was an idea that we had gotten to go around to all the islands and to have the Hawaiian physicians come and talk about our health conditions.
It is physicians who have an interest in improving Native Hawaiian health.
Some of the things that we do at Ahahui are really gathering that information, teaching each other what we know that we can help, and then putting that out there to teach others.
We need to set an example for the young individuals to say, yes, not only can you be a doctor, but you can be a life changer. You can make a difference.
And by doing what's right for our people is protecting our aina. So focusing on the aina that sustains us, that's part of the key to addressing this cultural trauma.
If you can help the Native Hawaiian who has the worst health disparities, then you're basically raising up the culture and the health of everybody in Hawaii.
If we can make an impact on Native Hawaiian health, then we can learn from that model and we can apply it to others.
It's important to bring Indigenous doctors from around the world together because we have the same story in addressing Indigenous health disparities with our people. The Maori Medical Physicians Association invited us down to New Zealand to their annual meeting to actually meet with us. As we were sharing about our health problems for our people, we realized this networking we were doing with each other was so valuable just for us that it would be valuable for our members to connect with each other. And that was when the idea of PRIDOC was born. PRIDOC stands for the Pacific Region Indigenous Doctors Congress. PRIDOC is very interconnected with Ahahui. It's an important part of Ahahui's work, and we're a key member of that group.
PRIDOC represents an organization that combines Indigenous physicians from Hawaii, from Australia,
From the Maori to First Nations up in Canada and different Indigenous communities from all around the world.
At its heart, it is a cultural event, and it's about who we are as Indigenous peoples that we bring to the table and to enrich our professions.
It's really interesting when individuals from these different countries come together, because what happens is when we're together in this forum, you know, one person asks a question or says something like, oh, there's all these health disparities and all these inequalities that are happening in my area. And then this next person says, hey, the same thing's happening to me too. So what we're seeing and finding out from talking to doctors from all over the world is that Indigenous people, for some reason, are experiencing the same issues. Even though we have different languages, we look a little bit different from each other, deep down, we're all the same. We're all working toward the same goal of making our communities healthier.
Ahahui na Kauka hosted Pride Up when they were on the Big Island. Whoever's hosting, they have activities around cultural learning and immersion.
To be able to get our hands dirty and to work in the mud gives us this cultural humility and understanding of, okay, this is important.
Aloha Aina doesn't mean just taking care of the land. Yeah, Aloha Aina means taking care of each other, taking care of our ohana. Aloha Aina is our kuleana, and by doing that, we can all continue to move towards a healthier future.
We all share a similar story of where we come from, whether it's Aotearoa, whether it's on the plains of Arizona, whether it's in the mountain peaks of Alaska, whether it's in the Pacific Islands. We are looking to cultural resilience as a principal factor in empowering our own health and our well-being. We need to open, expand our minds, the environment we build so that our poe, our people, our kanaka, it's a comfortable environment that the language that we communicate, the atmosphere in which we present the healing service is something that they can connect to. And that's what mana is all about, connecting to our past, and then how do we apply it to the knowledge we have learned at universities, through our traditional cultural practices, customs, and beliefs.
90% of Hawaiians, regardless of their ethnic admixture, strongly identifies with being Kanaka Maoli, and they're wanting their cultural values and practices to be at the forefront of what we're doing in our communities and in our schools.
I am happy to share, some of the wisdom and knowledge of my kupunas, and I am glad that they were able to pass all these down, and that we're making an effort to understand that and understand our environment.
It's nice to come to a space where you feel like you're connected and you're not the only one. So you're kind of empowered by other people working in this area, and you feel a lot more connected and kind of like the shoulders of giants to stand on so that you can move forward and you can educate others and you can keep doing the work that you're doing where you are and where you're from.
Not only do we have our own culture and our own issues that we deal with, when we see that our neighbors have some of the same kind of issues, the same kind of struggles, we can support each other. And once we work all together, we'll be able to accomplish so many things.
And so what we're hoping to do with Pride is looking at what are the cultural factors and strengths that have kept these indigenous populations to still survive and even get to the point of starting to thrive.
It starts with the physicians being able to understand.
It's not about checking a box, pushing you through the examination room, that no, I need to understand and have a conversation with you.
Our first step is to go into the communities, talk to the people, talk to our patients, get their feedback, and from there, our hope is that we can set up both short-term and long-term programs that just help people thrive, help people live those healthy lifestyles that we all strive to live.
So looking at how different social determinants affect a patient's total overall health.
Social determinants of health is that space where you live, work, and play, all the things that impact you. So it's your job, it's your housing, it's your education, it's the grocery stores in your neighborhood, or lack thereof. It's the streets in your neighborhood or lack thereof. It's the opportunities. Those are what drives health.
Looking at the cultural health and all of the social demographics that influence the cultural health is very important and something that we need to continue to strive to understand. And only by doing that, we can help to address these disparities and help to uplift the health of our entire community.
Being in a physician role is very different than your own way that you grew up. And so it's very Western, this is the way it is. And as a Hawaiian, you're like, well, I kind of believe this way, and we want to help people, and we want to do this. And the Western way is like, no, it's like this. And so you're taught that in medical schools. So if you think about that and how Ahahui being that support system, that advocacy system, that understanding those ways, that's how we can help everybody else. And so with Ahahui, it's actually allowing me to be that Hawaiian and be a Western trained physician together.
Just having the act of kind of rebirthing our culture and rebirthing our language is part of that wellness.
We need to do a better job of managing our health. We have tremendous resources, and I would encourage every Native person to take advantage of those resources to ensure that you can live a long, healthy life.
If my environment is healthy, my water system is healthy, my food supply is healthy, I'm healthy, and my family is healthy.
We need to remember to reconnect with what's important to us and to take care of our health so that we can ultimately take care of the health of our patients.
It's about that ability to build connections. When you have those connections, you've built trust. And when you have trust, you have loyalty. And when you have loyalty, then you have the ability to make change.
In this day and age that we live in, it's really easy to have an attitude of anger, frustration, even sorrow. But I think if we can come from a place of gratitude, then we can start learning more about our culture, more about our ancestors, more about how we can take all of that negativity to learn from past mistakes and then move forward.
We have a traditional saying, he mihi kala'au lapa'au e ho'ola. It is forgiveness that is the medicine that shall heal. We are at a state where we know where we have come from and the challenges we have endured. But no longer shall we be a victim of that past. Let us acknowledge it, let us accept it, but let us move on to empower ourselves.
But by returning to those basic, simple, and yet strong traditional beliefs and values and concepts, we care not only for ourselves, but with all. And therefore, we must encourage more Kanaka Maoli to enter the health professions in order to meet the grave health needs of our peoples.
So, focusing on aloha aina, focusing on being pono, focusing on the kuleana that we have as physicians to really do what's right. As long as you stay true to those values, then you can really continue to focus on moving forward to a healthier future.